In this episode of Biblical Unlocks, we will go through a chapter of the Bible and make it make sense in your life today. Studies routinely show that reading your Bible regularly significantly lowers symptoms of depression, anxiety, and anger, whilst also increasing forgiveness, compassion, and a sense of purpose. So if you enjoy episodes like this, please consider following and rating the show. It's free, helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Enjoy the show. So hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Biblical Unlocks. Today we're going to go through Exodus chapter 14, and this chapter is actually going to record Israel's deliverance at the Red Sea, one of the most famous stories in the Bible. Trapped between Pharaoh's pursuing army and the sea, the people panic, but God is going to act decisively, and you're going to see that. And it's going to set the stage for the birth of Israel as a people. And it's a climactic reversal of Israel's bondage in slavery. And God's covenant promise is going to break through and he's going to show world-shaping, spectacular power. And this is going to be really important and is going to set the stage for Exodus 15, where you're going to have Israel's identity and worship being solidified. So, without further ado, let's read the 31 verses of this chapter. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and camp in front of Pihath-hareroth, between Migdol and the sea, in front of Baal-zephon. You shall camp opposite it, by the sea. Pharaoh will say of the Israelites, 'They are wandering aimlessly in the land. The wilderness has closed in on them. I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them, so that I will gain glory for myself over Pharaoh and all his army. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord.'" Verse 5. Then the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled. The minds of Pharaoh and his officials were changed toward the people, and they said, "What have we done, letting Israel leave our service?" So he had his chariot made ready, and he took his army with him. He took 600 elite chariots, and all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the Israelites, who were going out boldly. The Egyptians pursued them, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, his chariot drivers and his army. They overtook them, camped by the sea, by Pihahiroth, in front of Baal-zephon. As Pharaoh drew nearer, the Israelites looked back, and there were the Egyptians advancing on them. In great fear, the Israelites cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Is this not the very thing we told you in Egypt? Let us alone so that we can serve the Egyptians, for it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." But Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid, stand firm, and see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today you shall never see again." Verse 14. "The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to keep still." Verse 14. Verse 15. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. But you lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the Israelites may go into the sea on dry ground. Then I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, so that they will go in after them. And so I will gain glory for myself over Pharaoh and all his army, his chariots and his chariot drivers. Then the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gained glory for myself over Pharaoh, his chariots and his chariot drivers." Verse 19. The angel of God who was going before the Israelite army moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from in front of them and took its place behind them. It came between the army of Egypt and the army of Israel. And so the cloud that was there with the darkness, and it lit up the night. One did not come near the other all night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. The Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and turned the sea into dry land. The waters were divided. The Israelites went into the sea on dry ground, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued and went into the sea after them, all of Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and chariot drivers. At the morning watch, the Lord in the pillar of fire and cloud looked down on the Egyptian army and threw the Egyptian army into a panic. He clogged their chariot wheels so that they had turned with difficulty. The Egyptians said, "Let us flee from the Israelites, for the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea so that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots and chariot drivers." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at dawn the sea returned to its normal depth. As the Egyptians fled before it, the Lord tossed the Egyptians into the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the chariot drivers. The entire army of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea, not one of them remained, but the Israelites walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. Verse 30. Thus the Lord saved the Israelites that day from the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great work that the Lord did against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord and believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. Alright, time for some deep biblical unlocks. Bar for bar, let's go. So, in verses 1 to 4, Pharaoh regrets letting Israel go, and God tells Moses that Pharaoh will pursue so that he may glorify himself in Pharaoh and all his host, and so that the Egyptians may know that he is the Lord. So God hardens Pharaoh's heart. But again, it's present, but it shows that Pharaoh stubbornly pursues the Israelites. So Pharaoh stubbornly pursues the Israelites, and because of his stubbornness, his own hardness of heart prior to God hardening his own heart, it provides the occasion for God's supreme display of power and judgment. So God's purposes are never, ever hindered by human pride, but rather human pride, human hardness of heart that Pharaoh displays actually provides the stage on which God's justice and glory is shown. And this hardening of heart serves as a justice being served. That is Pharaoh's ongoing refusal to listen to the Israelites, to listen to Moses, to let them go, opens the door for decisive justice. In fact, I've said this before many times, God can use crooked sticks to draw straight lines, and Pharaoh is one of these crooked sticks, but God's plans are enacted and fulfilled nevertheless. In verse 5 to 9, we see Israel panicking because they hear the Egyptians approaching, and the Israelites cry out to the Lord and to Moses, and they are terrified. They say, it would have been better for us to serve in Egypt than to die in the wilderness. But what is this? What is going on here? This is actually a personal reality. Sometimes when you have freedom, it can feel worse than what you experienced during captivity, during the slavery, during the hardship. Because people have a reflex understanding of what pain is, what suffering is, and what goodness is. And they revert to safety thinking when they feel that, when they see the chariots, they think, oh, maybe it would have just been good for us to just stay where we were. No progression, no deliverance. Maybe we should just stay in our sin. Maybe we should just stay in bondage, in slavery. The story of the Israelites and the Exodus story as a whole indicates something critical about our relationship with sin. Jesus describes the relationship we have with sin as being slavery. That is to say, we are a slave to sin. Anyone who sins is a slave to sin. And here we are looking at a story about the Israelites who are enslaved in Egypt. And we're hearing the same sort of things that a person who is enslaved in sin would say. I don't want to go to the promised land. Maybe it's not as good as we had initially expected. Maybe it's not going to be the promised land. Maybe we should just stay in bondage forever. No, the Lord delivers you from your slavery of sin. The Lord delivers you from the slavery that you currently experience. There is no point in staying where you already are when God has delivered you. In verses 10 to 14, Moses commands them and says, "Fear not, stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord. The Lord will fight for you and you have only to be still." One of the most famous verses in the entire Bible, Exodus 14:14. And what is the detail? What is the meaning here? Moses reframes the entire situation and says, deliverance does not come by military strategy. It does not come by strategically planning your assault against the Egyptians. Where does it come by? It comes by silent obedience and trust. Stand still is not saying, hey, don't worry what's going to happen. No, it says, be disciplined in your faith. Obey God's command to move forward into what looks like disaster, but you must trust that God will act. Trust is predicated on a lack of surety. That is to say, when you are unsure, that is when the Lord will fight for you. That's when you have to trust in the Lord. You rely on the Lord. Because if you knew everything that was going to happen, there's no trust there. You know what's going to happen. Trust comes. When you say, I trust you, that means you're not sure. When you're not sure if someone will do it, you'll say, I trust that you'll be able to do this because of what you've done in the past. Their victory is not by sword, but by God's intervention. And this sets up a radical understanding of what trust is, how one can trust in the Lord despite significant adversity. God then instructs Moses to lift up your hand over the sea, to part it, the parting of the Red Sea, and that he will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will pursue, and that he may be glorified in Pharaoh and all his hosts, and that the Egyptians may know that he is the Lord. Moses' action with the staff shows again, I'm going to be obedient to you. I'm going to listen to you, regardless of what I can and cannot see. Many of us will be like, what do you mean, lift up my staff? How's the staff going to change the direction of the waters, and how's it going to part the sea? Wait, God, you don't know what you're talking about. Let me just do things my way. You know how stupid that sounds? Yet every single one of us do that every single day. We think we know better than God about what we should be doing with our own lives, so we fail to trust in the one who loves us, who knows what is going to happen, knows the end of our story, knows what we're going through right now, and we want to trust in ourselves rather than the one who knows exactly what's going to happen. So we need to just obey, rather than try and do things on our own. Verses 19 to 23, we see a pillar of cloud, and it moves behind Israel, and it positions itself between the camp of Israel and the camp of Egypt. It creates darkness for one and light for the other, all night. And what this allows is protection, for one, so it shows that God protects us. But then the second thing is it strategically shields Israel and allows Moses to part the Red Sea and move quickly, which is actually what happens in verses 24 to 30. At morning watch, Moses stretches out his hand over the Red Sea. The Lord drives back the sea by a strong east wind all night, and the waters are divided. Israel walks through on the dry ground. When the Egyptians come, God clogs their chariot wheels, and in the morning the waters return. The sea covers the chariots, the horsemen, and all of Pharaoh's host. None of them survive, and Israel sees the great power and the Egyptians dead on the shore. And Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. So at the end of the chapter, they are in disbelief, but they're also in awe, because they fear what the Lord is able to do to protect them. So that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. This show is designed to help you keep up your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. I upload daily, so if you don't want to miss tomorrow's episode, feel free to rate the show and follow. Otherwise, just have a blessed day. And always remember, if you're not in your word, you're in your feelings. Godspeed.